Your Christ figure represents symbolically your idea of God and his relationships. There were three separate individuals whose history blended, and they became known collectively as Christ, hence many discrepancies in your records. These were all males because at that time of your development you would not have accepted a female counterpart. These individuals were a part of one entity. You could not but imagine God as a father. It would have never occurred to you to imagine God in any other than human terms, earth components. These three figures worked out a drama, highly symbolic, propelled by concentrated energy of great force. The events, as they are recorded, however, did not occur in history. The crucifixion of Christ was a psychic, but not a physical event. Ideas of almost unimaginable magnitude were played out. Judas, for example, was not a man in your terms. He was, like all the other disciples, a blessed, created, fragment personality, formed by the Christ personality. He represented the self-betrayer. He dramatized a portion of each individual's personality that focuses upon physical reality in a grasping manner and denies the inner self out of greed. Each of the 12 represented qualities of personality that belonged to one individual, and Christ as you know him represented the inner self. The 12, therefore, plus Christ as you know him, the one figure composed of 3, represented an individual earthly personality, the inner self, and 12 main characteristics connected with the egotistical self. As Christ was surrounded by the disciples, so the inner self is surrounded by these physically oriented characteristics, each drawn outward toward daily reality on the one hand, and yet orbiting the inner self. The disciples, therefore, were given physical reality by the inner self, as all of your earthly characteristics come out of your inner nature. This was a living parable, made flesh among you, a cosmic play worked out for your behalf, couched in terms that you could understand. The lessons were made plain, as all the ideas behind them were personified. If you will forgive the term, this was like a local morality play, put on in your corner of the universe. This does not mean it was less real than you previously supposed. In fact, the implications of what is said here should clearly hint at the more powerful aspects of godhood. The 3 Christ personalities were born upon your planet and indeed became flesh among you. None of these was crucified. The 12 disciples were materializations from the energies of these 3 personalities, their combined energies. They were then fully endowed with individuality, however, but their main task was to clearly manifest within themselves certain abilities inherent within all men. The same kinds of dramas in different ways have been given, and while the drama is always different, it is always the same. This does not mean that a Christ has appeared within each system of reality. It means that the idea of God has manifested within each system in a way that is comprehensible to the inhabitants. This drama continues to exist. It does not belong, for example, to your past. Only you have placed it there. This does not mean that it always reoccurs. The drama, then, was far from meaningless, and the Spirit of Christ, in your terms, is legitimate. It is the probable God drama that you chose to perceive. There were others that were perceived, but not by you, and there are other such dramas existing now. Now, whether or not the crucifixion occurred physically, it was a psychic event, and exists as do all other events connected with the drama. Many were physical, but some were not. The psychic event affected your world quite as much as the physical one, as is obvious. The whole drama occurred as a result of mankind's need. It was created as a result of that need, grew out of it, but it did not originate within your system of reality. Other religions were based upon different dramas, in which ideas were acted out in a way that was comprehensible to various cultures. Unfortunately, the differences between the dramas often led to misunderstandings, and these were used as excuses for wars. These dramas are also privately worked out in the dream state. The God-personified figures were first introduced to man in the dream state, and the way then prepared. In visions and inspirations, men knew that the Christ drama would be enacted, and hence recognized it for what it was when it occurred physically. Its power and strength then returned to the dream universe. It had increased its vigor and intensity through the physical materialization. In private dreams, men then related to the main figures in the drama, and in the dream state they recognized its true import. Now, God is more than the sum of all the probable systems of reality he has created, and yet he is within each one of these without exception. He is therefore within each man and woman. He is also within each spider, shadow, and frog, and this is what man does not like to admit. God can only be experienced, and you experience him whether or not you realize it through your own existence. He is not male or female, however, and I use the terms only for convenience's sake. In the most inescapable truth, he is not human in your terms at all, nor in your terms is he a personality. Your ideas of personality are too limited to contain the multitudinous facets of his multidimensional existence. On the other hand, he is human in that he is a portion of each individual, and within the vastness of his experience, he holds an idea shape of himself as human, to which you can relate. He literally was made flesh to dwell among you, for he forms your flesh in that he is responsible for the energy that gives vitality and validity to your private multidimensional self, which in turn forms your image in accordance with your own ideas. This private multidimensional self, or the soul, has then an eternal validity. It is upheld, supported, maintained by the energy, the inconceivable vitality of all that is. It cannot be destroyed then, this inner self of yours, nor can it be diminished. It shares in those abilities that are inherent within all that is. It must, therefore, create as it is created, for this is the great giving that is behind all dimensions of existence, the spilling over from the fountain of all that is. This reality and those attributes will appear within various systems of actuality in keeping with the camouflage data of any given system. The inner experience of the multidimensional God can come in two main areas. One is through the realization that this prime moving force is within everything that you can perceive with your senses. The other method is to realize that this primary motive force has a reality independent of its connection with the world of appearances. All personal contact with the multidimensional God, all legitimate moments of mystical consciousness, will always have a unifying effect. They will not, therefore, isolate the individual involved, but instead will enlarge his perceptions until he will experience the reality and uniqueness of as many other aspects of reality of which he is capable. He will feel, therefore, less isolated and less set apart. He will not regard himself as being above others because of the experience. On the contrary, he will be swept along in a gestalt of comprehension in which he realizes his own oneness with all that is. As there are portions of reality that you do not consciously perceive, and other systems of probability in which you are not consciously aware, so also are there aspects of primary godhood that you cannot at this moment comprehend. There are therefore probable gods, each one reflecting in its way the multidimensional aspects of a prime identity so great and dazzling that no one reality form or particular kind of existence could contain it. I have tried to give you some idea of the far-reaching creative effects of your own thoughts. With that in mind, then, it is impossible to imagine the multidimensional creativities that can be attributed to all that is. The term all that is can be used as a designation to include all of those probable gods in all of their manifestations. Now, it is easier perhaps for some of you to understand the simple stories and parables of beginnings of which I have spoken. But the time has come for mankind to take several steps further, to expand the nature of his own consciousness by trying to comprehend a more profound version of reality. You have outgrown the time of children's tales. When your own thoughts have a form and reality, when they have validity, even in other systems of reality of which you are unaware, then it is not difficult to understand why other systems of probabilities are also affected by your own thoughts and emotions, nor why the actions of the probable gods are not affected by what happens in other dimensions of existence.